This month's Power Board meeting. I understand, Mark, you and Andy are both on Zoom right now.
That's correct.
That was Mark.
Just Mark.
Oh, is just Mark on?
Just Mark. Andy isn't, so it's just Mark.
Okay, so we just have Mark on Zoom then. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to change it up a little bit. We've got a little new face, so let's introduce him first off.
Oh, you want me to introduce him?
You introduce, or you're going to make him introduce himself.
Well, I'll, I guess, say his name and then we'll have him come tell us a little bit about himself. Yeah, our new assistant director is Scott Hughes. He comes from Hurricane, where he's actually been here just under 2 months now. It was just after our last meeting. So we're excited to have, he's fitting in really well. And so, I don't know, you want to say something?
Yeah, definitely happy to be here. I come from Hurricane. I was the director over there, the power director over there. 19 years at Hurricane City. So happy to experience some change and see what we got going over here and help out where I can. I am local. I was actually born in Washington, moved to Hurricane when I was 5 or 6 years old and spent most of my life there. Raising a family there. I have 3 older boys that are out of the house and a couple of young little girls. Just loving Southern Utah, so happy to be here and do whatever I can to help out.
That's why you look familiar.
Yeah.
You've been around a little
Been
bit.
around quite a bit.
Good. I'm glad you're here.
You presented at the last year's convention, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where I
UMS.
think I recognize you from.
Okay. No, I like it.
He'll fit right
No.
in though if he's not a good golfer.
No.
So that's great.
I like
He's
to
not
golf,
good.
but I'm no good at it. So,
Hey, welcome. Okay, that wasn't an agenda item, so that's why I thought I'd start off that way first. We don't have visitors too often or spectators too often, so anyway, so yes, let's get started. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So did everyone have a chance to get a copy of that? Have a chance to look it over, and are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
No questions here.
And no questions here as well.
All right, then if I can get a motion and a second.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda.
And I'll second that.
Okay, Todd did the first and Mark did the second. So Mark, if you'd start us out.
Aye.
Todd
Aye.
Spriggs, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes. Again, did everyone get a copy of those and chance to look through and have any questions or comments or concerns?
Yep.
Yep, you had a concern or yep,
I
you
have
got it.
lots of concerns, but none about the minutes.
And no concerns here as well.
Okay, will anybody motion and second?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, Todd, would you start us on a vote?
Spriggs, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, gets us to item number 3, regular business. Turn the time over to Rick.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time and effort. Tonight should be fairly simple. We don't have anything action-wise. We do have a few things just to make you aware and what might be coming up in future meetings. Just a little bit of a reminder. Our impact fee update will actually go into effect on June 1st, that we did 90 days ago or so. So that'll be coming up. Obviously, that's already been approved, but we're just about through the waiting period. I think we could have done it mid-May, but the council elected to do it just on June 1st. So we're good on that. Our fiscal year 26 budget will go to the council this month. I think the Is the public hearing next week, Jeremy? Is the public hearing for the budget next week or the following? And then we'll approve it 2 weeks after that. Yeah, so the budget is well on its way. Unless there's questions, I think we'll be able to move forward with our projects next year. With the Grapevine substation and transmission lines we've talked about, those are our two main, at least especially big ticket items that are in that budget. Since we've been 2 months since we met, we'll report our March peak was just under 21 megawatts, which was the highest March peak that we've had, about 3 megawatts higher than the previous peak in 2022. April was just under 26 megawatts, was about 1.2 megawatts higher than the peak in 23. So again, it's sometimes hard to tell how much is growth, how much is temperature. I think it's always generally a combination of both. In fact, we'll can even see that, which is here we go. This year's the bright green line. So we're trending so far this year just above what we've seen in the past. So shouldn't be surprising with all the growth going on in town. The generators, early in April, we had every 3 years, we have to have a company come in and do emissions verifications, testing. We completed that testing in early April. The results are good, so we don't have any issues from that standpoint. Next week, we've got Wheeler coming in to help out with Jake and Tyler to do some valve adjustments and that should be the last significant thing that we're ready for the run season that will be coming up. In May, maybe depending on temperature, certainly June, July, August, and September, we have gas spots. So really the first part of June is when we'll anticipating running the units. So, but we should be set up, ready to go. Give you a little quick report on various projects. The Grapevine substation, we I think previously reported that we had awarded the steel. The delivery time was really good, and we received our first load of steel last week. It's in our yard, and then we expect to see hopefully a truckload a week for the next 3 to 4 weeks. So by the end of the month, we should have all the steel delivered for that project. Don't have any foundations yet to put them on, but we do have the steel. One thing that came up this last month is we got a letter from Siemens, who is the manufacturer for the circuit breaker for the substation. And due to the tariffs, they requested another $6,400. Unfortunately, we don't have many options on that other than, because if we were to walk away from that, I don't think they'd really care, but that puts us in line for another 1.5 years to wait for another breaker. So that's just something we're starting to see. Fortunately, it doesn't look like, it looks like the regulators are ahead of the deadline they sent to, if they were supposed to be delivered before April 1st, they didn't pursue any tariffs after they did. So, but the regulators were supposed to be here in March. They won't be here till next month, but I haven't received any requests on that one, fortunately. The foundation and below grade bid package was awarded to Bodak, who's the same contractor that did our Main Street foundations a couple years ago, and then the Staley rebuild about 4 years ago. And we had our kickoff meeting yesterday, and those should be on site next week, starting the foundation work. So we're excited about that. That's moving forward. On the transmission lines, we're waiting for the drawings from the steel supplier, CHM. Supposed to be here any day, so hopefully this week, and then we'll do the approvals. And then once we get through the drawing process, we will have clear dates on when those structures will start to arrive. So we've done, as in conjunction with the Red Hills Parkway work there by exit 10, where the city went in and made it the 5 lanes. We put in some conduits to feed, we'll put the cable in next year, but it'll provide a backfeed for Canyon Breeze and then that little commercial area that's over that way. We've got one last segment of probably about 150 feet of conduit left to put in up Red Ledge Road. And then all the conduit will be in place for that project. So it was good timing, able to coordinate with Public Works project, and we got that in. So our AMI project, reported before that we've had to do an upgrade with the utility billing software. That is scheduled to be completed on June 9th, so hopefully about a month from now. That portion will be done, and then we're working to get the integration between Aclara and Springbrook, get them talking to each other and get those working. That's really the obstacle we have of starting to get things deployed. We're getting relatively low on standard residential meters. We have a plan to, we could put some Aclara ones on and manually read them on an apartment complex, and that would allow us to get another like 60 meters that we could use other places to buy us a little time if we need to. So trying to, hopefully that'll go smoothly once we get the software upgrade. So we have, what is it, about 500-600 meters in stock. So we've got the meters. It's just being able to get the software to read them, and more importantly, to generate the bills. One of the other projects we did this year was the GIS update, and it's called UN Utility Network. And so this is kind of our system with each circuit, a different pretty color. And as you zoom in, if I can get, oh, come on. As you zoom in, you'll start seeing other features and details showing up. So this tells us it's on circuit 101, phase C. This transformer's on phase C, which makes sense because that's the line. And so like we did a switching procedure today, and they actually simulate that procedure in the GIS, and these numbers, if we were to switch this line to a different circuit, it would populate on here when they do that. So our crews now have up-to-date information, even if we've got the system in an alternate configuration. And then this will be useful in tying into the AMI and hopefully eventually load flow work or software in the future. So doesn't look like much. There was a lot of work, and it provides a lot more detailed information than we previously had. So I want to give you at least a little bit of a screenshot that shows in there, and you can click on all the different features and it'll bring up the information on the transformers and switchgear and different things like that. So any questions on that at all? The SCADA upgrade's done, other than just physically moving the server to this building. We just got to coordinate with IS to be able to get that done. The Telegraph rebuild project, I think they were a little bit, they weren't quite done last time we met. That is now complete. And so that gives us a heavy feeder between Staley and Sienna Hill sub, as well as up across the freeway to the Main Street sub. So again, we just put in bigger wire to give us more capacity, particularly if we had a problem somewhere, we could serve more load over that line. So, other things, just a shot I took up in the Quail Ridge area. The crews have been replacing some old poles up there in the older overhead parts. This was one that Jake found when we were doing some maintenance in the substation. This is I'll go back a slide. This is a current transformer that basically is a device that allows you to measure the current on a line. So the current goes, the bushing would go through the center of that. And these are about 16 years old, and he noticed that we had this cracking going on. And so we've replaced the ones in Buena Vista, or excuse me, in Sienna Hills. We still have to replace them in Buena Vista. They're some of our older stations. And we noticed that in the newer reclosers that these mount on, the manufacturers changed how they mount. And so we're having new brackets to match the old, or the new mounting that we can retrofit on the old ones as we do this. So before it just mounted on 2 holes, and so it kind of put a cantilever, and these probably weigh about 40 pounds, 30, 40 pounds. The new bracket supports it at all 4, so I'm thinking that was part of the problem with this. And he's also putting some rubber on top to help give them a little bit of sunshade, to hopefully, if this was caused by UV.
What are those made out of?
It's like an epoxy rubber. If you look really close in this picture, you can actually see the windings of the transformer in there. That's not supposed to be exposed to the weather, so that's why it
So you think it's just age and not some sort of trauma or something?
No, I think it was age, and then just reading between the lines, since the manufacturer changed, it's the same basic recloser. They changed how they mount these. I suspect that there was some issues. They won't really admit to that, but I suspect that's the case, and that's why we're having Milne. We took one of them off, and they're duplicating the mounting that we'll put on these. So, on the solar side of things, last month actually, the applications picked up quite a bit. We'd been around 4 to 7 the last several months. We had 13 in April. However, the trend still continues that 9 of those 13 were either adding panels or batteries or a combination of both. They were existing solar customers that enhanced their system, basically.
The majority of the solar, are they doing battery backup?
We are, I would say, probably at least 50% or more of them now. And say there's of those 9 that retrofitted stuff, I think all of them added batteries. Some of them added a few panels as well. So we're starting to see that more. And if the system, or if they have the battery programmed correctly, that basically will start discharging when the sun goes down, that's gonna actually provide us some benefits instead of the more benefits than right now. Generally, they're producing solar when we have more than enough resource, so it's actually a detriment. But if we can get that shifted with their batteries, that actually helps quite a bit. So So that was good to see. And there's some really complicated systems starting to go in that be interesting to see how they do. They got batteries, generators, multiple batteries, all kinds of things. So one of the first things Scott's helping us with is the pole attachment policy. We had received comments back from TDS as well as CenturyLink. And so he's going through and kind of combining the comments from both that were agreeable to us. So we have them as close as possible to each other. And then we'll be sending those back to those two companies for any final comments. Hopefully they'll agree with it and we can move on with that. That's a policy that you and the council approved, I don't know, it was well over a year ago. So back to some of these charts. Our wholesale power cost last month, well, in March, was just under 9 cents. And one thing I wanted to kind of point out here, you'll see with some of the things that we've done with purchases and we've, I think, been successful in stabilizing our costs in the average cost between 7 to 9 cent range. And we continue to work to keep that coming down, but we aren't gonna, I'm hoping to avoid these wide swings that we saw back in 22 and 23. It's a lot less stressful on my mind, at least. The PCA, I guess, reached a peak negative of 1.7 cents. The last couple months, it's just slightly less negative. So we're at 1.6 in March. So there's, yeah. And again, how that works, depending on if the next month is higher or lower than what the previous month was 12 months earlier, it'll either go up or down. So I suspect it will become a little bit less negative over the next couple months, and then it will kind of level off, maybe in the 1 cent, maybe a little over 1 cent range. So I'm hoping, again, I think the stability helps financially as well as just creates a better environment. We already had that one, and then the average usage for residential customer in April was 591 kilowatt hours, which you can see is pretty consistent with April for the last 7-8 years. And that's just taking the number of kilowatt hours sold to that, the residential class, and dividing by the number. So just a real simple average. So that's really all I have on the local system, and the rest would be UAMPS unless somebody has questions. Good to move on.
What's your on the poles on the Parkway?
I would, the question was, when will the poles of the Parkway start arriving? If I remember right, their quote was 12 to 16 weeks after the drawings are approved. So I'm guessing it will be fall, and then we can move into installation, probably late fall into the winter. Yeah. So that's the rough timeline, and like I say, they'll give us more of a formal schedule once we get the drawings approved. So on the UAMP side of things, we had meetings actually down here in St. George in April, which was really nice. I didn't have to travel. And we also held the toolkit, which several, how many staff did we have there? There was probably 6 or 7. Since it was local, we were able to have quite a few staff attend that were kind of curious of, what is UAMPS? They hear me talk about it a lot, and so they were interested in that. So Mike had mentioned previously, you should have got in your packet the little flyer of the guy. So if you got kids or grandkids that want to name him, let me know, and we can submit it. I think the contest is we get to win a life-size cutout of him. Not sure what we'd do with him if we got him, but
The city manager should get it.
yeah, we could put it in Jeremy's office. Here, Scott, this was a banner UAMPS gave us. Oh. So it has they've come out with the power behind the people. So now we can. So where are we supposed to put that? I have no idea.
I wonder if we should send that flyer. This is their new UM's, did they name him right?
No, there's a contest to name him now.
Okay.
Sparky, name it Sparky or something.
George Washington? That would almost be funny to try, but we'll have to say it with Scott.
Get it over at the new Heritage Hall.
So I'm not sure what we'll do with it, but anyway, they're trying to use it. I don't know if anybody remembers Ready Kilowatt. Way back in, Todd probably remembers it.
That sounds really familiar.
Just a little mascot. So if you got ideas, send them my way or send them to Rachel and we'll turn them into UAMPS. So we continue to look for opportunities. Again, we've completed that other 5-year purchase. So I think we're in good shape. Again, except for Q3 over the summer, there'll still be different purchases that we'll have to make. And that'll be generally, I think, a shorter term type purchase. So a few things on the Central St. George project, which is basically from the 138 project from Central down. We've talked about the area utilities, meaning UAMPS, Dixie, St. George, and Rocky Mountain, that we're gonna start running all the 138 in below St. George sub looped or closed together. And it looks like that's on track and should actually happen in June for this upcoming summer. And again, the main advantage of that is if we have a fault on one of the lines, it should trip both ends of that line and no load will be lost is the goal. So that's actually a pretty monumental achievement to get all those entities cooperating and getting it to that point. So I'm kind of excited about that. So, I mean, the 69 system, the lower voltage transmission still will be radio, but it's not going to affect entire as big an area for a given fault. The other thing on that project is with all the growth, are coming to the using up the capacity we have in the transformers that transform the voltages from 138 to 69 kV. And so we had done a study of what needs to be done, came up with a plan to carry it out, and it's basically will be a 5-year project to replace or move around some of the transformers and the UAMPS assets that we have. And so we had a meeting this morning and actually approved moving forward with that. The next thing that will affect this body as well as the council is we'll need to do some adjustments to the Central St. George agreement. And with any luck, we could bring that next month and then to the council in next month's meeting as well. And basically what that will be is it will allow us to bond for the amount that we'll need to make those upgrades. Again, it's a reliability issue. If there's no, we're fine if don't have any transformers issues. If we were to lose one transformer, we could still pick up the load, but it would take a lot more work than if we'd have to do a lot of shifting around in the county. So we're just getting to that point that we need to get more transformation. And the other thing they reported was right now, delivery on those kind of transformers is 3 years. So even if we placed an order today, it would be 2028 before we see it. So that's the first phase, is getting those long lead time items on order to get that clock, and then they'll start doing the more detailed design as well. The Nebo Payson project actually had a pretty big milestone. We paid off the original bonds in April. So that was really good. And what we've done as a PMC is, obviously those costs now for that debt service will come off, but there's 2 major maintenance coming up in the next, I think it's 3 to 4 years. And so we'll more or less keep the same payments, if you will, going to UAMPS, and we're putting that in savings. So when those maintenance items come up, we can just pay cash and not have to bond for them. So, and then the goal is, after those couple years, when we get that generated, then that will drop and reduce the costs in that project. So that was pretty good to get the bonds paid off. Nebo did have their spring outage in April. It was 10 days it was offline. They didn't find any significant change or problems. And so it's back online and running, which is really, really good. In contrast, our Vail project hasn't run very much. It's the waste heat one up just west of Vail. We really haven't received any output from it because Kern River hasn't been running their compressors, so there's no waste heat to generate from. They did the spring outage, maintenance outage, while that was going on, and on the generator, they found that 3 blades on the fan that cools the generator had broken off and went into the generator. Good news is they're not metallic, and it still passed the electrical tests, but we're still uncomfortable enough. So it's been, I don't know if it's out yet. If not, it'll be within the next week or so, and sending it up. There's an outfit in Salt Lake that will kind of go through all that and make sure and replace the fans on it. So their goal is to have it back for summer, and then hopefully Kern River will be compressing gas again, and we can use that asset. At our last meeting, we reported that the IRA grant funding was put on a pause with the new administration. That actually has been lifted now, and we actually signed that grant agreement last week with the state. It's federal funding administered by the state, and so we signed that agreement with them. So we're starting to put together the material list, and the one challenge on that is it has a Buy American, Build American requirement. So we have to show documentation, all materials are American made. And so we're gonna develop a material list, and that'll be that responsibility to provide us with documentation of where the materials come from. We'll get back from the vendors when they do that. So the solar projects have been running well. I don't know if you recall our 2 steel solar projects. Each one of those had, each year they'll do a scholarship fund or provide it. And we actually had 2 winners from Washington City get 2 of those scholarships. I think there's 8 that they did, so that was really good. On the Millard County Natural Gas Project, it's moving along. They had the kickoff meeting with the owner's engineer, Burns and Mac, and then their goal is by the end of the year to have a really good general arrangement drawing set and then refine the cost estimate so we can get a more refined cost of power basically by the end of the year. So that's the goal on that one. The other major thing that happened is the Power County. We were able to get the subscription we needed. Logan actually came back and signed up for, I think it was 15 megawatts, and that put us over the 85% that we had in those agreements. So that project was formed in April, and then we approved the ability for them to start getting financing so we can start moving into the owner engineer. So it's a month or two behind what Millard County is. But in both projects, they have the site secured. And then they'll start looking at transmission line routes and securing those right away. So the other projects that are under potential development, there's not a lot of movement on the wind or the geothermal, primarily because of transmission issues and studies issues with Rocky Mountain. So they're not dead, but they're not moving very fast on that. The Fremont Solar, which is up by the Parowan or Beaver? Parowan. They've put that project, the developers kind of put it on hold until they get a better understanding of what the tariffs are going to do to them. Because that could be pretty volatile as far as what price they could offer depending on how that impacts them. But we did do an agreement with them that they would basically secure the costs to stay in the transmission queue. So we didn't lose that position while they were figuring out whether to proceed with the project. So a lot of interesting challenges there. And then probably the last thing, and probably most important for UAMPS, is UAMPS traditionally or has always been a project-based organization, which basically means, just like you've experienced several times, projects developed in, like Millard County or Power County, then each of the members can decide to participate or not and to what level. And then we come back to the power board and councils and get approval to do that. With some of the extended day ahead market requirements that are coming up, that will go into effect in about a year, there's going to be a resource efficiency requirement that's put in there that, particularly for small entities, and we're kind of, I think, in the middle, is going to be kind of difficult for them to deal with on scheduling day ahead on an hourly basis and making sure that it's accurate. So there's been some interest within UAMPS to at least offer, they call it an all requirements project. So it would be a project amongst all the other projects, where basically, and it can take on a lot of forms, and we don't have all the details at this point. I just want to kind of get your thoughts. Like UMPA, which is Provo, Spanish Fork, Levan, Nephi, and I think Manti, and Salem. They basically, on their resources, they all have the same mix. They all pay the same wholesale rate. So they kind of put it in a big pot, stir it up, and what comes out, which is similar to what Deseret does with the co-ops in that group. So there's kind of the two models. And Mason had done some research and found that there's some joint action agencies that kind of support both models. And so we're pursuing or looking into different options. And so this graph was from the presentation from the board meetings last month. And so you can go to one extreme and have 100% of the requirements. So all the responsibilities for securing the resources is done by that agency, and all you do is you're just a member, and you have some voting rights, but it's not individual resources differently. Then down here, we have kind of what our current model is it the opposite, where each individual member in UAMPS right now has a different mix. Everybody's different, they participate in different projects, so everybody's costs are different. So there's a couple other options. Is one of them is that you could set that the Joint Action Agency secures a certain percentage, and then everybody else still is responsible for a certain percentage. And then I think one of the options that we're looking at is in this green, which is kind of a combination where potentially a project could be formed within UAMPS. So there could be, say, out of the 30 members, 15 participate in this all requirements. And then the others are still doing the same thing that they've always been doing. There's some advantages and disadvantages. And then even within that, and I don't want to get into some of these gory details because, to be frank, right now I don't understand all the differences. But basically, light, medium, and heavy would, it would vary of how much, what role the JAA or UAMPS in this case would take on. So the underlying thing that I guess I'd like to maybe hear some feedback, the all requirements is a simpler model because they're taking care of all that. So the decision at this level would be to participate in that project or not. And once you participate in it, it kind of hands off a lot of that resource procurement responsibilities. So as long as they're doing their job, it's simpler. They take care of all the scheduling, all the forecasting, all that kind of stuff. Where right now we have kind of pretty good autonomy because we can pick and choose what we want, and we kind of either rise or sink based on our individual decisions. So I know that's a lot with not a lot of detail. I'd just be curious if how important the Power Board feels that autonomy is versus maybe some of the simplicity. Any
Well,
thoughts?
I think it would be a lot easier to be able to project what's come about, right? If you went 100%, to be able to anticipate. But and logistically, it would be obviously easier. I can't imagine doing some of those partial participation and trying to figure all that out. Would it benefit a bigger market to do 100% or this?
I think, I mean, personally, if you kind of go back here, so this heavy would be more like the UMPA or Deseret model, where everything gets dumped into one pot, gets stirred up, and everybody pays the same thing. On the other extreme is UAMPS would take care of a lot of the resource procurement, what projects to participate in, and then we'd still have individual costs based on the resources that we have at this time. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And so and then somewhere in the middle, you could have the resources you have now, and then everything from now on in the future gets put in a pot and stirred up together. And so UAMPS is trying to figure out which is the most beneficial to the members, if at all. We don't have to do this. In fact, we've got a meeting with Jake and Scott and Jeremy in the morning to kind of talk about this in a little more detail, but there's some, I think from our standpoint, it's definitely simpler, but it comes with that trade-off of some of the individuality too. And
Hey, Rick.
Go ahead. I think it's Mark, right?
Yeah. So my question there would be on the light end. So we'd be locked into the projects that they choose. Is that correct? And they're
Basically, yes, we would have a vote on that PMC for the all requirements. But if that group selects resource A over B, then everybody gets A. You can't have half on A and half on B.
right. Okay. So I'm understanding that correctly. So, my question would be: has this been done before? And is there some sort of track record to that we can have some information from or look at to make an educated decision on that?
That's all some of the questions we've been asking and UPS is working on. Yes,
Okay.
there are other agencies that do this in these various forms.
Great.
And Jason's actually went out and visited with them, and some of them kind of told him that they couldn't believe how complicated UAMPS was because everybody does their own thing. So they were kind of shocked that the other exists.
Right.
But yes, we
Right.
definitely need
Yeah.
tons of detail before we make decisions on this.
Yeah, and if we can see some of that information, I agree with Todd wholeheartedly on the fact that the simpler that it is, in theory it looks like that would be the better choice. So, but I'd love to see some more information on that level, if possible.
Okay, yeah, and we're definitely, the UAMPS board has asked for that as well from UAMPS staff, so. Any other thoughts, concerns?
Seems to make more sense, so definitely worth looking into. But I don't know. What do you think?
Problem is the uncertainty. I mean, there's not projects that are readily available. Yeah, it makes it easier for them to find them and then we just jump in on them, but which that's kind of the way it seems like it's headed.
No, say that again, I'm sorry.
If there's projects out there, if there was a lot of projects out there to choose from, then it's easy for us to go out and find them. But where those projects are getting limited on how many are starting up and stuff, it's easier to let UAMPS find it and then us just kind of attach to them, which would be that
Correct.
light model.
And there's the, going into the EDAM concerns with the scheduling side of things as well. So there's the procurement and then there's the actual day-to-day operations. And part of the challenge for me at least is going into the EDAM market, we really don't know exactly what that's gonna look like even under our current model. So it's kind of trying to compare one unknown against another unknown with not a lot of definition. And so that's what they're working on, trying to give some better information. They did report, they thought that there could be, a decent amount of savings just with the diversity within the UAMPS membership. I think generally it's going to be easier to schedule for one larger load than a bunch of little ones all individually is kind of what we're doing now. So kind of let that percolate in your minds. This will be coming probably in the next 1 to 2, 3 months. It'll move fairly quickly because it affects how we migrate towards the EDAM market and how they set
When does that
things up.
start?
Starts basically a year from now, May of 26 is when it's scheduled. And the challenging part for everyone is the Rocky Mountain still doesn't have their tariff through FERC yet. So we don't even know the rules to the game that we're trying to anticipate. They have the drafts, and they've made comments on those, but they don't have an official ruling that this is how it's gonna work, so.
I assume this is something we're gonna talk about in a couple of months at the
Yes.
convention and stuff. This will be a heavy topic.
Yes, and it may come quicker than even August on some of the basic decisions. So, and because of the changes that have to be made for EDAM, this seemed like the right time to do it as well, because some of that detail is gonna be required for EDAM regardless. So I guess that maybe that's the main takeaway, is how important is simplicity potentially versus being able to direct your destiny by yourself. And there's pros and cons to that. If, you know, like I say, if we make bad decisions individually, then it's kind of on us. And then hopefully as a group, and again, so the voting, the way I see it now, all requirements would be a project amongst all the other projects. And then when that project decides, then it would also, and they haven't figured out all the governance, how that would work on the other boards, because it gets kind of complicated. If you have some in and some not, it creates a governance challenge that they're working out as well, so. But I think that's some of the basic difference, is just how we approach securing our resources, so. So give that thought, and again, this has come pretty quick for the board as well. It's been discussed in theory for quite a while, but now it's kind of coming a bit to the head, and
Probably make your life a little easier, wouldn't it?
potentially, yes. So that's the appealing part, and we just got to make sure that just because it's easier doesn't make it better. I'm not 100% sure at this point. Personally, I'm thinking maybe more of the light medium route, but we'll see. And so they've put out, it was like a 10-page memo to get the board's feedback, and then like a survey monkey with, you know, where to try to gauge the interest level so they could focus. If the majority say, hey, we think light's the best way to go, then they can kind of narrow it down instead of chasing all these different options, that they could present the detail that you're looking at or wanting.
Yeah.
So that's basically, I think, all I've got, even from the UAMP side. Apparently the wind in Idaho and Wyoming was good in March. Their capacity factors were up, so that was good. But that's what I got for you tonight. If you got any questions, let me know. Or
No outages or anything major?
oh, sorry,
And we had one.
you meant. Thanks for bringing that up. I think.
Sorry, those are things, yeah, you probably don't like to talk about.
No. Overall, it's been relatively quiet except for last Sunday. We had, let's see, get to the right picture. This crossarm brace should be up here, and just over time, the nut had worked its way off, and so it fell down, and this is an energized conductor. So it caught the pole on fire. If you looked, it's burned in here all the way up. And if I go back, this was after the line was de-energized. Hopefully it'll work or come up. Yes. In fact, excuse me for just a sec. I think I have to run it from here. I don't know if that'll make it any bigger. So this was after the line was de-energized, and it's the fire department. They came out and helped out. So the top 5-6 feet of the pole had burned, so. And if you look close, you can see the embers in there, so the crew was out until 1:30, 2 o'clock, Sunday night, Monday morning, replacing the pole and getting people back on, so. It doesn't happen very often, but
It's amazing more things like that don't happen though. I mean, when you look at the birds and all the potential issues that could happen, I mean, we really don't have that many occurrences,
Right.
which is nice.
And one of the things, like if you go to, like we don't use this kind of brace anymore. Or if you look at all of anything that's been rebuilt, it's a fiberglass arm and we call it a braceless. It has a bigger bracket, and so you don't have these braces. So you don't have this grounded piece in such close proximity. So as we rebuild, we take that kind of older technology down.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. As complex as the system, you figure every single house has you can physically trace a wire back to a generator somewhere. It is amazing of how few outages we really have. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that too loud, but yeah. So anyway, the crews do a great job, and I think Jordan was on call, and then when he obviously found out it was a bigger issue, I think all 5 of them showed up and took care of it, so.
Yeah, we do have a good crew.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. I had it all set up and I totally. A small one here or there, but this was it affected, I'm not even sure, I haven't seen the outage report yet of how many, but there was an area, it was up in the Quail Ridge area, so. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, any questions, comments?
No questions here.
Okay. Well, then our next meeting is June 3rd, June 3rd. So if there's a motion to adjourn,
I'll go ahead and motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Mark, will you start us on a vote?
Hauser, aye.
Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks. Are we done recording, Dave?